Good evening, folks, and welcome back to the ARCA Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Evans, a.k.a. Startin' Park Car, and boy, we had a wild one at Phoenix last weekend, and it's going to be a fun race to talk about. The second race of the ARCA Menard Series season, and technical standards, the first race of the ARCA Menard Series West season. All the weird battles that happened on the track, the leaders getting taken out, Van Alst extending his points lead. We got a lot to talk about today, so let's get through my short little intro as usual, and we'll get right into the action. So you guys know the drill, of course. Follow me on social media, Twitter at Startin' Park Car. If you're a fan of the lower budget team news, ARCA news, I'm your guy, so go ahead and give me a follow. Like and subscribe to the channel. We just hit 1,000 subs. Again, can't thank you guys enough for your support there. It really, truly means the world to me. And, of course, check out theracingexperts.com for all NASCAR media content. All right, let's get right into it, shall we? So we had the General Tire 150 at Phoenix. I said it last week on my show, and I'll say it again on this week. Phoenix is not one of my favorite tracks to particularly watch. I don't think the racing is usually very good there. I'm more of a fan of the pre-2011 repave of Phoenix. Which, I mean, some of you in this chat might not even remember. I'm curious to see if any of you guys remember the old Phoenix. I prefer the old Phoenix. I like racing on the old Phoenix on the older Xbox games and Xbox 360 games. I've just never been a big fan of this new Phoenix ever since it was brought in 2011. ARCA usually does put on a good show, even in the K&N West days. Always seem to put on a good show. These guys, the rookies, it was one of the bigger tracks on the circuit. And it just always seemed to put on a good show. Sometimes we'd see some Cup guys drop down. We haven't seen that about the last 6-7 years, but it's still from the K&N era, even into the ARCA West era. They always seem to put on a great show. And this one was no different, of course. The entry list, I will say, was a little bit smaller than expected. Some reports that had initially 38 were going to be on the entry list, which was, kind of what we all expected because, ARCA West, it's a big race, one of the biggest races for the ARCA West guys. It's one of their big chances to get on TV. And, of course, you got the main series guys. It's their second show of the season, so you're going to have a lot of cars there as well. But surprisingly, we only had 32. We did have a couple of withdrawals, and we did have some people point out that they were not able to show up due to financial reasons as well. So that probably more than likely played a factor as to why the entry list was only down to 32, which again, and I even said it on last week's show, 32 was still a more than sizable field. We only had 2 planned starting parks, so we were still going to have 30 full race cars, which, like I said, is more than enough for a good Phoenix race. Unfortunately, again, we'll just get right ahead into practice here. So practice took place earlier that day. We did have some one incident in practice, a very horrible crash, probably one of the worst ARCA crashes I've seen in practice in a while. Bryce Hogberg, it really kind of sucks because I'm not sure if this was Andy's equipment or if this was Bryce's car, but Bryce got loose in between turns 1 and 2 and a horrible rear impact to the back of Bryce's car. Basically, the entire rear end was gone. The entire rear frame was gone. Deck lid was gone. I mean, this rear end is going to be needed a lot of work before this car is returned to service. And it really sucks for Bryce because he's trying to build. I think they said he was trying to build a full season out of this, but this is obviously a big setback. But remember, due to the ARCA points rules, by completing a practice lap, which Bryce did, Bryce completed 22 laps. It kind of sucked that this happened on his last lap of practice, what was going to be his last lap. That he does get at least 3 points. So while it's not as many points as he'd probably like, it does give him a couple of points to move on from Daytona, which still keeps him, as of now, inside the top 20 in the driver points. Not much else to go off from practice other than shocker. Up front, we had Tyler Reff in the Loudon Jackson Motorsports car lead practice. I was pretty much as shocked as anyone. I'm sure some people were saying, first off, who is this guy? Tyler Reff, of course, the younger brother of Tanner Reff, who drives for Bill McNally. And I was genuinely surprised by that until I was told what kind of car that Tyler was driving. And basically, Tyler was driving from what some people were saying, was the exact same car that Taylor Gray had won with at Phoenix last year. And they were still running an old Fusion nose with that car as well. It did not have the updated Mustang nose, which for some people, I've actually seen some reports saying that the Fusion nose actually handles better at the short tracks than the Mustang nose. I'm curious to see if that's actually true, but according to what some people say, the Mustang nose does not handle as good as the Fusion nose at the short tracks, while at the plate tracks, the Mustang nose is more downforce than the Fusion nose. So I find that quite cool, to be honest with you. But yeah, when he was driving an old DGR car, I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. He was also driving a Yates motor. It's kind of cool to see the Yates motors being a more prominent factor in the ARCA series. A lot more cost, in my opinion, at this point, especially a lot more cost effective than the Ilmors, which you predominantly, from what Raja Karuth, I was pretty cool that Raja Karuth actually chimed in during the race when I brought up the 41 running a Yates motor and how pretty much anyone will run a Yates motor at the short tracks, even like tracks like Iowa, tracks like Five Flags, tracks like Salem, Toledo, and then we'll run the Ilmors at tracks about a 1 mile and bigger. And I thought that was a really cool insight by Raja Karuth. I'm not sure if every single team is doing that, but I think that gives you an insight, man. And I'm glad ARCA does that, because that's some of the prices that I've seen that the Ilmor engines are going for nowadays. The Yates motors are definitely more cost effective, that's for sure. And I'm not saying that the Ilmors are still bad. They're not. I definitely have my opinions on the Ilmor motors, but I'm glad the Yates motors are another option and more cost effective for these short track races. Jesse Love was second in practice, and William Solwich was third. Shocker. Those two Toyotas that we knew they were going to be the cars to pretty much beat. Bradley Erickson, that was a pleasant surprise to see a West team this high up, and this is not a main series West team affiliation. Two West teams, two main series mainstay West teams inside the top 5. That was pretty cool. Sean Hingarani running West for Vanrini was 5th. Connor Jones and his part-time starts was 6th. Landon Lewis was 7th. Leland Honeyman and Youngs, right now this was their only planned ARCA start for this season so far, was 8th. Jack Wood driving for Rev is 9th, and Andres Perez de Lara was 10th. Other notables in the ARCA field, Frankie Muniz was down in 12th. Tony Breidinger was in 14th. Points leader Greg Van Elst was down in 16th. Other full-timers, Christian Rose was down in 21st. John Garrett was 24th. Tony Cosentino was 27th. And backmarker Brad Smith, was debuting the new Ford, was slowest. He only ran a couple laps in practice, but did improve with his speeds as they got into qualifying. I knew Brad was going to start and park this race, mainly because he doesn't have the biggest fond of Phoenix. He just doesn't really know how to drive the track. Phoenix can be kind of a difficult track to drive if your car is not completely up to standard. And, judging by his lap times, I know Brad could more than likely go a lot faster than that. Said his biggest problem is like the dog leg. He just doesn't really know how to drive the dog leg as well. And yeah, they can be a little different. I'm sure a lot of tracks don't have the up and down like the dog leg does at Phoenix. But yeah, I knew Brad was going to start and park. And then, of course, when Tim Monroe's in the car, more than likely to start and park outside of the dirt tracks. Going into qualifying, it was a little bit different. We had William Solich. Again, shocker. William Solich gets the pole. I thought this race was going to be a blowout once I saw the qualifying results. And wow, William Solich beats the field by nearly 0.6 of a second. I'm like, oh, God. Are we just going to get a number 18 dominance blowout again? Jack Wood was 2nd. Jesse Love was 3rd. Tyler Reff was 4th. And Leland Honeyman was 5th. Other notables, Andres was 6th. Connor Jones was 8th. Frankie was 11th. Van Elst was 14th. Tanner Reff, I would say McAnally. Once again, McAnally, I will say, has really struggled. They struggled last year with the move to Chevrolet. And it looks like that it really hasn't gotten much better for them in terms of this season because they got outrun by quite a few of the West Series regulars. Koga, David Smith, Nascimento, Souza, Keller, Huddleston, Lewis, Hingorani, and Erickson all outran the 16 car, which is quite shocking because we've seen how dominant they were back in the Toyotas. But ever since that move to Chevrolet, McAnally has really, really struggled with their ARCA program. Only 28 cars of the 32, or I guess of the remaining 31, did take a qualifying lap. Some of them were having mechanical issues. Other than that, I'm not really sure why they didn't take a practice lap. Sometimes, I guess sometimes I have seen where they don't take a qualifying lap on purpose. The 06, the 46, and the 04 were the other cars that did not make a lap, but they all did start the race. So come race time, I honestly thought coming into the race, we were just going to get a number 18 blowout victory by Solich. I'm like, man, this is going to be the day. And I really was wondering, they said this is a 3-year deal and getting into Xfinity. And I just had to in my mind before the start of the race, like, if he just goes out there and just like dominates, wins every single race, leads every single lap, reality, what is he learning? Like in reality, what is he learning by just leading every lap, going around the lap cars, and then collecting the win? And I was a little worried about that because when they said he wants to get to Xfinity, I'm like, man, JGR really sees a lot of potential in this kid. And I know it's only his first race, but I'm just wondering, will he learn enough? And thankfully, as we'll get into in this race, he did. The poor kid learned maybe a little bit more than he should have in this race. But you know what? That's good. A kid like William actually needed, in my opinion, he needed a race like this to really show, what can happen in these races and to what to expect with this season. So we'll get into it. We'll get into all of his stuff just a little bit later. But yeah, the race started. Green flag. The 18 gets a big jump. I mean, by the time they get to the backstretch, he is already almost a second in front of the field. And I'm like, oh, God. I mean, I didn't want another blowout 18-car victory, but, I was kind of expecting it. So by the time he'd already had a second lead after the first lap, I'm like, well, I guess we're getting another 18 blowout victory. Was impressed, though, to see the 41 fighting for third. The 20 had consistently stayed up in second. But it wasn't for long. We quickly had our first caution, and I just chalked this up to a classic rookie mistake. It was Frankie Muniz. Went in a little too did a kind of a classic thing we've seen at Phoenix where he dives under the 50 car of Huddleston, but the air pretty much sucks him around. Luckily, the 30 didn't hit anything. It was kind of cool seeing the Hot Chick sponsored on the 30 car. That was kind of a local sponsor in the Phoenix area. So that shows you that the 30 team, they might not have full-time sponsorship for the year, but they definitely should be able to pick up week-to-week sponsors. I mean, how can you not when it's Frankie damn Muniz? If we ever see that 30 car unsponsored, I'll be genuinely shocked because what company would not want themselves associated with the former Malcolm in the Middle star? So, yeah, no damage to his car, just a classic rookie mistake. We've seen it happen at Phoenix before. No harm done. So we quickly got the race restarted. Nobody was a lap down. Both Brad and Tim Monroe, again, for starting parks, were still on the track. Like I figured they would be. They usually run about 20, 30 laps and then pull off. Race went green again. And same thing as usual. The 18 got out front. Then the 20 kind of followed him behind. The 41 had slipped a little bit. He was battling for fifth with Sean Hingorani. Was actually pleasantly surprised with how high up in the running order Sean Hingorani was, just at kind of his lack of experience. Hadn't had a lot of ARCA West starts. I think he only had about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 coming into this race. So I did not expect that much speed. But I guess when you're driving a Venturini car, it shouldn't be all that shocking. It shouldn't be all that shocking that he was driving as good as he was. But then as I, give him a compliment right there, he makes a very, in my opinion, not needed mistake. Coming down into turn 3, he dives under the 41 just a little bit too late. And really, he was not going to make the corner. He dove in way too hard, took out the 41. And thankfully, due to the fact that the turn 3 and 4 wall at Phoenix is so far out from where they actually make their arc, the 41 had enough time to slow down where they just barely hit the wall. Nothing too serious, and damage wasn't too severe. But I'm like, there pretty much goes one of our West Series competitioners, because I thought the damage was pretty severe. But luckily, after what we saw with shots later, that the car was damaged, went 2 laps down. Keep in mind, he went 2 laps down, didn't just go 1 lap down. He went 2 laps down. So again, that makes this win even more impressive. Spoiler alert. But it did show that he was able to continue, which was good, because I really didn't want to see a good run like this end so quickly. Also with an unneeded run like that. And it was clear that the 15 of Hingorani screwed himself by doing that, because he basically struggled the rest of the race, complained on the radio that basically the right front suspension was killed, or something in the suspension was killed when he hit the 41 as hard as he did. So it was kind of a lose-lose situation for both guys, as the 41, while it hurt them in the beginning, it just kind of killed the 15 for the rest of the race. And you could even see during the halfway break a little bit later on that they were trying their best to fix whatever they could under the hood. And it appeared to work a little bit, but still kind of killed the 15's day. At that point, we did have a free pass. The 0-4 of Ethan Nascimento, one of the 2 Nascimento entries, was the free pass. But we had another quickie yellow, the 0-6 of AJ Moyer, with his not 1 of 1, not 2, but 3 separate incidents tonight, and somehow did not hit a single thing, which I will say is the most impressive thing out of all of that. 3 separate spins and didn't hit a single thing, which thank God, because I know Wayne does not want to tear up that Toyota. That's kind of his main short track car for now. He doesn't want to tear that one up. So yeah, that was a quickie yellow. And that was actually a big opportunity for the 41, because it allowed them to already right out of the gate get one of their laps back. They got one of their laps back. And then we had a very unique situation happen on the restart. The 18 didn't get the best restart. The 20 was just able to hang on his quarter panel, get him a little bit loose, and the 20 didn't take the lead. But the 0-2, this to me was the biggest shocker of the whole race. Not the 20 taking the lead, the 0-2 of Leland Honeyman and Young's Motorsports taking the lead of an ARCA race. And we haven't seen the Young's Motorsports ARCA program really be all that competitive. They haven't shown a lot of speed. I mean, top 10 level speed at some times. In the E Series, obviously they showed top 5 speed. With that's, was the E Series last year. Showing top 5 speed was pretty easy to do if you had the right equipment. And just, it was a real shocker. And it wasn't just a case of, he got the lead, but, he was caught by the 20 or caught by the 18. Like, no, he got the lead and he kept it and he pulled away. Like, it was a very pleasant surprise to see how competitive the 0-2 was at this point, keeping a stable distance of about a second between himself, the 20, and the 18, who had slipped to third. So we were easily seeing at this point, okay, so if William, he might have the best car when he gets out front. But since this kid is not used to these kind of cars in traffic, when William does get behind the leaders to about third or fourth, it's not as easy for him. And again, that's part of the learning process with these cars that he's never driven before. And I like that. I like the fact that, he wasn't just out there on a Sunday drive. He was really having to get the reps and getting some lessons in. And it really showed in this race. It really, really did that. He, when he got back to third, he couldn't catch the 20. He couldn't catch the 0-2. And that dirty air definitely played a factor for him. Not much changed, like I said, in this span of time until our next caution 16 laps later for, you guessed it, the 0-6 again. Not sure if this was the one. I think he spun out the first time by himself. I think he spun out the second time with contact with another car, but I can't quite remember who it was. yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head who it was that he made contact with, but needless again, he kept it off the wall. So again, that was the good part. If you just looked at the car, though, I will say, I don't know if it was the shocks or what it was wrong with it, but the car just looked a little high off the ground. So I don't know if the car was 100% set up properly. I know I got a lot of friends on that team, but I don't know if that car was 100% ready to go or not. Needless to say, we got back to the green again. Although they had lapped so many cars in that 16-lap span, the 41 couldn't get the free pass on that yellow. After that, we had another quick two-lap run, although at this point, Leland had lost the lead to the 20 of Jesse Love. Jesse Love had gotten back past him on this quick restart when we had another quickie yellow. Again, this is about the time where the quickie yellows really started to come in. The 32 of Christian Rose took a spin in what would turn out to be a really rough night for the 32 car. He took his first spin of the night, didn't hit anything. He kept it going. 13 of Todd's was the free pass. The lap 54, I'm not sure if it happened here. I believe it would happen on the next restart. Coming into this restart, the 18 of Solich, Love had gotten the lead. The 18 of Solich was coming on the inside of the 02 of Honeyman, and they went into turn 3, and pretty much you could say similar to what happened between the 41 and the 15. The 02 kind of pinched the 18, and the 18 just went around, couldn't save it. Luckily kept it off the wall, or else William, his night would have been done. But the 18 saved it. But needless to say, this opened up a new factor. Not only was the 18 back in third place, and now he's at the back of the field. Now at this point, we only had about 22 cars in the lead lap, but this was going to be the real test for him. I mean, yeah, you're in JGR equipment. You're in arguably the best. You're in pretty much an X-Cup car. I mean, that's how good that this ARCA car is. But this is the real test for this kid. Can he drive through the field? He did. But this was going to be the real test for him. Luckily, didn't hit anything. Got himself some. I'm not sure if they did replace the tires because the break was coming up soon, but I think they did. This caution was also important because this did put the 41 of Tyler Reff back on the lead lap with over half the race left to go. So he had 16 laps basically just to claw his way from the rear of the field to as high as he could by the time the halfway break hit. In that 16-lap span, though, we did have some controversies. On the restart, the 02 of Leland Honeyman, it appeared that he had missed a shift on the restart, got rear-ended by the 2 of Delara. By the way, if I butcher his name, I'm sorry. I just have some trouble pronouncing it, so I'm going to say Delara. If I get it wrong, I'm sorry, but I'm sure you guys know who I'm talking about. Got rear-ended. Appeared that he missed a shift. I don't know why. Caused some pretty significant rear damage to the car, and then we found out later that he would need to do a pass-through penalty, unfortunately, for going under the white line before the start-finish line. And, while some people have a problem with that penalty, I think it's fair. I actually think it's a very fair penalty. Stay above the white line before you get to the start-finish line, and then when you pass the line, then you can cross over. I don't see why so many people have a problem with that penalty, because if they just allowed people to do it whenever they want, well, restarts would be even more chaotic than they already are, and we don't need that. So the one thing I wish they would bring back, though, I wish they would bring back the passing on the outside before the restart. I kind of missed that rule. Now, the OGs will remember that rule from the single car restart era. Those were fun times. I miss those kinds of restarts where you would see people pass on the outside. But yeah, the 02 had to go make a penalty pit stop. God, can't get my words out. And the 2 car of Delara, his nose was pretty well caved in. Luckily, at a track like Phoenix, as long as put some tape over it, his aerodynamics was still okay for the rest of the races we would see. But it was a shame because the 02 had showed the most speed I've ever seen out of Young's Motorsports, really in any race, trucks or ARCA. I have never seen that kind of speed out of Young's Motorsports. And just really sucks because, man, once again, there's one of our winning contenders. During the 16-lap run, though, man, the 18 was just hauling ass. That's all I can say. He was hauling ass through the field, clawing his way. I think he had made it up to the front at this point. Jesse Love was continuing to lead, but the 18 was coming, and had he not had that brake not come out, I'm sure the 18 would have eventually ran down the leader because, man, that 18 was flying. I think he might have been on other better tires, though, at the same time, though. So we get to the lap 76, 75 break. They come down. Everybody gets their mandatory, 4 fresh tires. 32 of Christian Rose was the free pass vehicle, and we're all bunched back up at this point. So the 0-2 did go. I'm not sure if he went 1 or 2 laps down, but he did go a lap down. At this point, we had about 20 cars still in the lead lap. Some updates, though, that I did need to get to. 10 of Tim Monroe completed 23 laps before power steering issues put him out. Brad ran 26 laps before a clutch issue. RJ Smotherman was not a start and park. They had a legit drivetrain issue. They had basically issues all day. This was a teammate to Loudon Jackson. I don't believe this was actually an XDGR car. I believe this was a Loudon Jackson car. But yeah, RJ's race was over, and that was it to that point. By the time we had come back from the race break, about lap 80, we still had the remaining 28 cars still on the track. So we still had a huge field of cars still on the track by the time we had restarted this race. However, and I had even said, unfortunately, I made this announcement on Twitter saying, man, we haven't seen many crashes. We've just seen a lot of spins. Boy, did everything escalate quickly. But yes, coming back from this race, it was all changed up. The 2 was a lap down. The 0-2 was a lap down. The 18 had made his way back up to the top 5. The 20 was leading. The Jack Wood looked like he was going to be a factor in this race. And I'll say it's really weird seeing Jack Wood back in ARCA. I don't know if that's weird to say. It's actually weird seeing Jack Wood back in ARCA because, he worked his way through ARCA. He worked his way through ARCA, went up to the Truck Series, had just a horrible couple years in the Truck Series. I mean, his run last year with GMS was just an absolute disappointment. You can't spin it any other way. His run in the 24 truck was no good. Absolutely no good, in my opinion. And, it's kind of weird where he is this season. He's running a majority schedule in the 51 for Kyle Busch while also running a part-time schedule for Rev. It's just weird seeing him back in the series, but it's actually kind of cool seeing the old Velocity Racing. That was the sponsor on the side of the 6 car. Kind of cool seeing Velocity Racing making a comeback low-key. And he was running down the 20 of Love as the caution had come out. So I'm like, man, we got a lot of heavy hitters coming into this race. We have a lot of heavy hitters coming into this race. And then the restart happens. Not one lap into the second half of the race. They make the first lap. They're battling side by side. The 20, the 6, and the 18. They go past the start-finish line. We are 4 wide, and I have no idea still to this day, what was Connor Jones doing? We go into turn 1, and it's just as if the 25 just doesn't even see the 6 right in front of him, just completely runs right into him and takes him out, takes out his own teammate, and also takes himself out in the process. Right into the 6, right into his teammate. He goes spinning out in the process, and I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? And it's not like Connor Jones is in his first start. And I like Connor Jones. He's a good kid. I've met him at the track a couple times, and he should know what he's doing. He's ran over 15 ARCA races. He should know not to do that. Like, what are you thinking, dude? You took out your own teammate. for the drivers and the owners championship, the 6 car, which, I think they're running full time, not with Jack Wood, but they're running full time in general with just multiple drivers. And then yourself, the 25, which is running for an owners championship. It's like, damn, what are you doing? And these cars were tore up. Like the 6 had a lot of damage. The 20 had a lot of damage. And, and while all this is happening, you guys haven't heard me mention Greg Van Alst. He wasn't in the top 5, but he was running about what? 7th, 8th the whole race? Well, you take out top 2 contenders. Greg Van Alst is now running top 5. Greg Van Alst is now running top 5. And I'm like, whoa. We already had a 10-point lead over the 20, which was arguably going to be his biggest competitor for the championship. And now we have a real opportunity here to extend that lead to a point where it might be a little iffy if the 20 can actually catch Greg Van Alst in the championship. And we'll get to the actual championship standings after the race. But telling you guys right now, for everyone who thought the 20 was just going to walk away with this thing, not looking like that right now for sure. But for sure, man, like Connor Jones, man, what are you doing? You're better than that. You're better than that as a driver. I mean, that's such a rookie mistake, like on levels that are almost unacceptable for driving for a team like Venturini Motorsports. I can only imagine what was going through Billy Venturini's mind when he saw that on television, and Bill Venturini as well. I can only imagine what they were saying about that. I will say, though, Jesse did give a pretty decent interview. Didn't really lay a lot of blame, even though he did see the wreck. Same with Jack Wood. Both gave very classy interviews. Both didn't bury Connor Jones, which I respected. I'm glad. I think, they saw it was just a very bad rookie mistake. He didn't do it on purpose. Connor Jones did not do it on purpose. It was just one of those really, really rough rookie mistakes that you hope doesn't happen again. I could see Connor Jones as a future Venturini Championship driver. It's just a matter of if he can come up with full season funding. But it just sucks seeing 2 easy race winning contenders get taken out, and a third one nearly take himself out. Luckily, he didn't hit anything. And who took the lead from all this? The 18. And everyone's like, well, I guess everyone just handed the 18 the win to the 18, I guess. And I'll be honest, I did too. I really did. I'm like, well, that's kind of it. But, through all of this, what none of us were really noticing was, the 41 is now back inside the top 15. After this crash, the 41 was now back inside the top 10. And I'm like, hang on a second. He might not have a shot at the win, but 41's not out of this completely. So it took quite a bit of time to get it cleaned up. So you took out those 2 cars. At that point, we were down to 26. Had the restart. Solich got out front, and he pulled away to a huge lead. I mean, 4 to 5 seconds. Huge lead. The 41, though, man, the 41 is just hauling, man. I mean, that car, even with the damage, that car was hooked up. And at this point, the 2 of Dallara had also gotten back on the lead lap from that crash with the Venturini and Rev cars. So the 2, he was hauling ass, and those 2 cars were just going to the front. Meanwhile, the 18 was just pulling away from the 35. The 88 of Bradley Erickson was, awesome to see a West Series team like Naki Kluwer running as well as they did. They didn't run outside the top 10 the entire race. He was running second. Van Alst was third. And then, of course, the 41 making his way through the field. He had actually gotten up to, I believe, the top 5. But we kind of hit a stagnant point where, the 18 was just kind of checking out. The 41, we figured maybe he could get to second if the race ran green. But if this race was going green to the flag, this was going to be an easy cakewalk victory for the 18. Well, it didn't go like that. And as we're seeing, though, all these back markers that keep coming out, they are continuing to drop the 20 car. And eventually when the 04 passed him, that put the 20 of Jesse Love all the way down in 27th place. So amazing. All the way down in 27th for Jesse Love. So like I said, this was a real opportunity race for Greg Van Alst. And you could kind of tell as well that I'm sure somebody said on the radio, hey, the 20 is out. We really got to go for it here. Now, if you're Greg Van Alst, I mean, sponsor Team 35. They did not have an official sponsor for this race. But at the same time, you know, in the back of your head, if you're Greg, you're like, man, I got a real shot now. We gotta go for it. And you could tell by the way that Greg was racing on track, he was being, he was being clean, but he was also trying to be as aggressive as he could as well, because you don't want to give up whatever lead you can build up at the same time. And at one point, he was going to have over a 30-point lead. Now, it didn't end up like that, but at one point, he was 33 points ahead of the 20. So we had kind of hit a stagnant point in the race, and it was at this time where we had our third accident. I almost had two. Third accident of the race for the 06. This time, he had gotten hit by the 32 of Christian Rose, or aka the 06 came into him, and somehow 3 accidents in a row, and AJ Moyer did not hit a single thing. Probably the most impressive thing AJ Moyer has done this whole year. I like AJ, but man, it's his Daytona showing was a little rough, and this showing here was a little rough. Was not a little rough, pretty rough. Honestly, after that last one, I'm surprised he didn't get parked. He kept going. Both right side tires were flat and dragging the car like crap. But they changed tires and he kept going. And everyone knows I'm a Peterson fan at heart. Worked with Wayne. Got a lot of friends who work on Wayne. But man, AJ is just. I mean, again, he's a rookie. It's his first time at Phoenix. But man, his performance was not very good. Performance was definitely not very good. And, you know, it had really shortened up the field once again. Like, man, you know, the 41, he's now in the top 5. The 2 is now in the top 5. And this is a real opportunity race for not only the 35, but for the 2, because as we mentioned at Daytona, Andres was allowed to run a practice lap to get 3 points to put him on the board for the 50-point bonuses so he could stay in contention for the Drivers' Championship. And this was another opportunity race for him to gain points on the 20 and the 35, which was likely going to be his biggest competitors for the championship. But yeah, so now we got the 2, we've got the 41 closed back up, and can the 18 hold the lead? There were no free passes under this caution. Accident took a little bit longer than I thought to really clean up, 7 laps for some reason. We had 2 more laps of green flag racing until we had we actually had a lead change. Like I said, I mean, could he hang on? And the 41 showed that even despite the damage, he was still a threat. He led coming back to the green, actually beat the 18 to the line, which was kind of funny. So he was actually credited with leading lap 126. William, though, kept the lead after the restart. 27 of Bobby Hillis, making his one of couple starts this year. Stopped on the track due to an electrical issue, so that kind of sucked to see Bobby because, you know, Bobby's part-time now, so anytime you see Bobby in the field, you just want him to finish. You know he's not going to run very well, but you just want him to finish. And unfortunately, an electrical issue put him out. Luckily, no damage to the car, so hopefully Bobby can get it fixed. Not sure if he's running full-time. I don't think he is. More than likely, we will see him again at the next Phoenix race for sure, but I don't know if we'll see him at any other West races. So that eliminated another car, but that did put the 02 of Leland Honeyman on the lead lap. So again, like I said, we had the 41 back on the lead lap, we had the 2 back on the lead lap, and we had the 02 back on the lead lap. So we had a lot of heavy hitters, man, that were back in this thing with only just a couple laps to go. So we restart again back on lap 133. Solich continues to lead 7 laps in, and then we have the 2 of Andres Perez Delara. He gets kind of sideswiped, kind of the exact same thing that Frankie Muniz did to Trevor Huddleston, except a little different. The 35 kind of chopped the nose on the 2 car. Luckily, he didn't hit anything, but it did bring out a yellow, so No damage really to either car. No more damage to the two, I should say. And then comes arguably the biggest moment of the race, or the second biggest moment, I should say, of this race. We restart this event, and we restart the event. The 18 continues to lead. 18 is continuing to lead. We get into turns 3 and 4, and I'm not sure what happened, but the 0-2 of Leland Honeyman gets into the 55 of Tony Breidinger. Leland saves it. He barely misses the wall. Tony takes a horrible hit to the outside wall, like probably one of the worst crashes I've ever seen her have. And Christian Rose and DL Wilson behind her crash as well. DL, horrible hit for him. Horrible hit for Christian Rose. Like, man, it's like whenever ARCA manages to crash, it's a hard crash, like horrible crash. You wouldn't think you would see a crash this bad at a track like Phoenix, but we did, and it was a really, really bad crash. But yeah, Tony, and I felt so bad for Tony. I really did, man, because Tony was having the run of her career, for all the flack, for all the hate that Tony gets about how she runs in ARCA. Man, she did not run outside the top 10 the entire race and ran ahead of some really, really good cars. And I know she's in a Venturini car, but we've seen her sometimes not show the best speed. But man, I felt so bad for her. She was really having the run of her career and had an easy top 10, even maybe top 5 finish taken away from her in a horrible crash. I mean, a really rough night for Venturini in general, man. I think all 4 cars ended up with some pretty serious damage. The 32 was destroyed. The 12 was destroyed. DL Wilson took a horrible hit to the right side. Tony got out of the car, thankfully. Christian got out of his car. DL, it took some time to get him out. When they showed the camera on him, he was sitting on the door, and he wasn't moving very quickly. And I'm like, oh no, and DL, he's not a young guy. DL's what, 50s, 60s. He's not a young guy. I believe that was a Gen 4 chassis with a Gen 6 body on it. And as we know, the Gen 4 chassis can be a little, not maybe as safe as their. But I agree with some people in the chat. I do wish the broadcast would have paid a little bit more attention to DL Wilson. They pretty much just showed him for about 4 seconds and then pointed more of their focus to the 55 and the 32 who had already gotten out of their cars. And DL, again, he's just sitting there on the door. He's not moving. And then they show him getting out, and he's moving very slowly and very gingerly. And I'm like, damn it, I hope he's not injured. Not DL, man, because I know that's his own car. That's his own car. And I'm like, man, I hope he's okay. I really hope DL's okay. And it would come to find out that he wasn't. He'll make a full recovery, but he was not okay. 3 broken ribs, a concussion, and a sternum issue, which was later revealed to me by a crew member to be a heart bruising. And I'm like, wow, that shows you just how hard that hit was. And they did show an onboard from the 32, and I posted it online, and I actually got a response back from Christian Rose. Christian Rose, of course, he blames the 12, whereas I will put it more, I don't know about 50-50. You got some people who will fully blame the 12. You got some people who are fully blaming the 32. In my opinion, if you look on the onboard of the 32 car, to me, it looks like the 12 is just holding his line and the 32 just turns right into him. But from some people, it looks like the 12 could possibly be turning right. But at the same time, it also still looks like the 32 is turning left right into him. So it's just hard to call, in my opinion. Christian Rose, though, he crashes a lot. He really crashes a lot. But I'm still not going to put 100% blame on him, even though I'm still not going to put 100% blame on him. it really sucks for DL because, like I said, this was kind of one of his random races. He's running full-time East, but this was one of his random races that he was going to run. It's his own cars, I believe, with his under affiliation with Fast Track Racing. And the car's pretty used up. The body panel pictures I showed, the damage doesn't look too severe, but to the interior, that car's pretty beat up. And 5 flags is only in about a week and a half, and I don't think DL is going to be cleared for that race. So I would hate to see DL's full-time. I mean, maybe he'll be cleared enough to do a start and park, at least. So hopefully DL is cleared enough to do a start and park at least, so he can at least keep himself in the points and keep the 12 car in the points. But I don't think DL is going to be cleared to run a full-distance race. Now, DL was cleared from the hospital yesterday, did post a response that was pretty brutal. I mean, he just flat out blamed the driver of the 32, basically posted saying, hadn't gotten to speak on the incident yet. We worked our way up to 15 out of 32 cars and appeared we had a clean car for our push in the E Series. I saw the wreck out in front and my spotter, Dan, advised me crashing in front of me with 3 laps to go. I let off a bit and the 32 car didn't get the message. 32 car wrecked 4 times Friday, this being his final crash. We as drivers have to check ourselves and be in control. It injured me and destroyed lots of cars. The cost for our small team is probably unrecoverable. A shame to have that happen. I am not the best, but I don't wreck, folks. This is my friend now, learning to breathe deep again. That was from Donis L. Wilson on Facebook. So, yeah, that car was pretty beat up. And it just sucks for everyone all the way around. AM Racing's full ARCA season with Rose right now is not going very well. Sucks for Wilson. I hope they can get the car back together. One of the crew guys said it didn't appear to be a total loss, but a lot of damage for sure. So hopefully they can make something work for 5 flags next weekend. Not this one, but the next one. But yeah, just a hard crash all around. Sucks for DL Wilson. Even does suck for Christian Rose. He had a pretty rough race up to that point. But man, Tony Breidinger, I feel for her the most. She was really having an amazing run and had that ripped away from her. So I hope we can see that speed out of Tony again. I've been a fan of hers for a while, and it just sucks. It really, really sucks because, man, she was just having such a good run. Even the commentary team was, and everyone on Twitter was like, man, Tony's really doing a great job. So sucked for everyone all around. Free pass on that caution was the 50 of Trevor Huddleston. Took about 8 laps to get cleaned up. We did have a red flag during that crash. We get back green going, and we have our other big incident of the race. Right as we go into the restart. The 18 is on the inside. I believe the 18 was 18 on the inside, I believe. 88 of Erickson was right behind him, and the 41 was on the outside. 18 gets a great jump, but at the same time, the 88 gets a better jump. And the 88 got to the inside, and, you could say that this was a little rough on the 88's part, but I will say, with how strong the 18 is, anytime you can get a door on him, you got to take it. You got to take it, especially if you're Bradley Erickson, because you don't know what it could lead to. And he got a nose in on the 18, and the 18, either the 88 turned right or the 18 kept going left. But the 18 goes around again. Yes, the 18 goes around again for poor William Sawalich. The 7 of Koga also spun in the little melee. No one got any damage, but it took out the 18 for the win. And, while some people will put all the blame on the 88, I will also put the blame on the 18, because at the end of the day, the spotter should have told him that he was there and maybe to go right and give him room. Whereas, maybe you could say, well, the 88 shouldn't have raced as hard, but man, it's late in the race. Again, you got to go for it. You got to go for that win. For a team like Erickson, they win that race. It could be a huge lead in the points for the West Series championship. But yeah, the poor 18 guy. Sawalich just had a rough go right there. But that gave the lead to Tyler Reff. Gave the lead to Tyler F. After all that, coming back from 2 laps down to be the leader once again. Erickson, with his damage, kind of got shuffled a little bit back to second. At this point, though, the 35 was running about 6th, 7th. The 2 was running about 5th. We came to the last restart, and I don't know what happened. The 41 clearly didn't go. He was supposed to be the control car. 41 doesn't go at all. The 17 just says, F it, I'll go. Clearly jumps the start. I mean, the 17 of Landon Lewis jumped the start clear as day. Commentating, I mean, Phil Parsons pointed that out immediately. Basically said that the race win was between the 41 and the 88. The 41 is down to third, gets past the 88. And I just will say it was weird. You watch it back, and I watched it back a couple times. It almost looks like the 17 just gave it to him. You go back and look at the pass that the 41 made. He didn't even have to fight him for it. He didn't have to move him. He didn't have to do anything. It almost made me wonder if the 17, if they thought that they were going to win, maybe they were going to get penalized. I mean, you could say it's kind of weird thinking, but I don't know, maybe if they thought they went back to second, they wouldn't be penalized, and they never ended up being penalized. But you got to wonder, had they won the race, would they probably have been penalized? And I would have said yes. I mean, they clearly as day jumped the start or the restart. But nonetheless, the 41 of Tyler F. has an amazing comeback and wins. I mean, what a shocker. And go celebrate at IHOP. I love how they interviewed Tony Jackson of Loudon Jackson. I wish I'd also interviewed Chris Loudon. It was also kind of funny how, kind of a funny part during the race, how they actually pointed out the flag that was on top of the 41 car, which was actually for the Valor and not the American flag. You kind of heard Jamie Little start talking about it and then quickly move away from that. I thought that part was kind of funny. But how cool seeing a team like Loudon Jackson, man, even if they have an XDGR car, they took it to them and they won, man. And they're so cool. I mean, you look at the low budgetness of that team and how awesome it is. Just so awesome. So awesome seeing them win. Landon Lewis was credited with second. Bradley Erickson was credited with third. So how about that? Our top 3 in this race. I mean, who would have predicted that the top 3 finishers of this race would have been West Series regular organizations? That, my friend, that's cool. That is cool. Andres Perez de Lara finishes 4th. Great run for him. Maximum points gains on both the 35 and the 20. Kyle Keller for the 70 car, 70 Jerry Pitts Racing, almost forgot the team for a second, gets a solid top 5 finish. Frankie Muniz, 6th place finish for him. Great run for him. Connor Jones finishes 7th. Leland Honeyman recovers for 8th. Trevor Huddleston recovers for 9th. Unfortunately, in that last restart melee, the 35 of Greg Van Alst was all the way back to 10th, which I actually call a disappointment because that team easily deserved a top 5. Todd Souza finished 11th. Tanner Ref was down to 12th. William Solich, last car on the lead lap, finished 13th. Eric Nascimento was 14th. Tony Cosentino, 15th. Sean Hingarani was 16th. David Smith was 17th. Alex Clubb was 18th. Takuma Koga from that crash failed to finish. John Garrett wasn't really revealed what happened to him. He finished 6 laps down, 20th. AJ Moyer, yes, the 06 did finish, albeit 11 laps down in 21st. Tony Breidinger was 22nd. Christian Rose was 23rd. D.L. Wilson was 24th. Bobby Hillis was 25th. Ethan Nascimento was 26th. Jesse Love, as we mentioned, was 27th. Jack Wood, 28th. R.J. Smotherman, 29th. Brad Smith, 30th. And Tim Monroe, 31st. Overall, man, I just thought this race was great. I know it had its moments of spinouts, but I thought the race was very good. ARCA so far this year has been on fire with the 2 races. Hot take, I would honestly say that the ARCA race from start to finish had the most action of the whole weekend. ARCA race was better than the Cup race by miles. And I would say it outshined the Xfinity race in a lot of levels as well. I think ARCA is really on fire this year with how they're racing. And I just think it's because, I really think it's also because the ARCA series has a lot more leeway with how you can skew the cars, camber setups. ARCA, they allow different setups with these cars. They allow more creativity, and you see they're skewed. You saw a lot of ARCA cars skewed. The camber setups for the front tires was all screwed up, and I love seeing that. I love the creativity that ARCA gives these teams. Some teams running Ilmores, some teams running the Yates motors, so you get a difference in motors, and it put on a great show. It really, really did. It put on a great show. We had our moments of stupidity, but in my opinion, it really, really did put on a good show. Did we have our moments of, what was that? And man, what was that? Yes, but you're going to have those. But I really, really thought that this race was the best one the whole weekend. And if you thought the Xfinity and Cup race was better, tell me how. I would really love to see how. From our winner to the actual racing. And the Xfinity race was still pretty good, in my opinion. The Xfinity race was still pretty good. I didn't like the Cup race at all. If you want to just put that there, didn't like the Cup race at all. Xfinity race, meh, was okay. ARCA race wasn't perfect either. I would give it a 7 to 8 out of 10. Wasn't perfect, but it was still a very good race. Xfinity, I give a 7. Cup Series, I give a 4 out of 10. But yeah, so just awesome for Loudon Jackson. Tyler Ref with his crazy hair, 15 years old. And man, here I am. I'm 21 years old doing this podcast, and I feel old. This kid was born after the COT had run its first race in 2007. Boy, do I feel old. How many of you guys feel old now? The winner of the ARCA race was born after the first COT race at Bristol. I feel pretty old, and I'm 21, about to turn 22 this year. Oh, wow. But hey, it's just impressive that a 15-year-old like Tyler has that much natural talent, in my opinion. So that's really cool. That is really cool to see. Yeah, and then of course the kid who won the Xfinity race was 18. So again, I mean, how old do you really feel? But our point standings coming out of this race. Greg Van Alst still leads the driver points. Who would have predicted that after race number 2 of the ARCA series that Greg Van Alst would be leading the driver points still? Frankie Muniz would be second, and Tony Cosentino is third. Yes, Tony Cosentino is third in points. This is a lower budget tier team. Third in points. Jesse Love is 4th. Christian Rose is 5th of our full-time drivers. The other full-time drivers, John Garrett is down in 11th, and Brad Smith is down in 33rd, but that's just because 2 straight 30th place finishes. Give it to about Kansas. He'll jump up in the points. But yeah, how about that? I mean, who would have predicted that would have been our top 3 in points coming out of this race? I'm trying to pull up the owner points on my phone because we had a kind individual. They haven't updated the owner points yet. Got them pulled up right here on my phone. ARCA hasn't released the owner points yet, but somebody was able to do calculations for me. And if these calculations are correct, Rev Racing and Greg Van Alst are actually tied for the owner points championship lead, and they hold a 2-point advantage over the 18 of Joe Gibbs and a 10-point advantage over the 30 of Reddy Jones. The 15 rounds out the top 5, 15 points behind. So, yes, those are your owner standings as well. Other notables still up there. Jack Wood is 6th in points, but as we know, he's part-time. Tyler Ref, this is only the second. This is only the one of 2 West races he'll be running all year. Or this realistically will be one of 4 other main series starts he'll be running as well. Connor Mosak, obviously he finished 2nd at Daytona, so he still got maximum points. But in terms of our championship battle, like I said, Greg Van Alst put a huge gap on Jesse Love, 25 points. And, let me tell you, with, the way Greg might be running this year, if Jesse has a bad race at Talladega and Greg doesn't, the catching him might be nearly impossible, so to say. And we saw how Jesse ran at Daytona. He has a great car, yes, but his inexperience clearly played a factor. Whereas Greg's experience, benefited him from having all those extra laps than Jesse. Perez de Lara, like I said, with his fourth place finish, really gained some points. He is only 14 points behind Jesse Love, and that is a key factor there as well. We saw how he performed last year for his couple of races with DGR, did very, very well, and only 14 points behind. So he's really going to look at Talladega to be that big advantage. And I would say our championship battle between these three guys, I'm curious to see how it's going to look after Talladega. I feel like after Talladega, we will get our real look at how this championship battle is going to play out, who's going to be the favorite. And I'm just going to be curious to see how they run that race. But realistically, as of now, Greg Van Alst has a legit chance at this championship, and that's just awesome. That is absolutely awesome to hear, awesome to say. I hope they can make it through the season. At this point, you got to go for it, in my opinion. You got to go for it. You're leading the points. How can this man not get a sponsor? I mean, he's leading the championship. He's tied for the owner's championship. He's leading the driver's championship. I mean, it's such good to see a guy like him. Doesn't even have a full-size toter home. I mean, he doesn't have a full-size 53-foot trailer. He has a modest-sized toter home as his race hauler. I mean, everything about Greg Van Alst, you gotta love. I don't see how anyone could hate this guy. And then you got, the big wigs at Venerini, and then you got the underdog big wigs at Rev. I mean, it's a really, really good way to set up a championship battle. You got your top guys, and then you got the underdog, and I love it. You got your young studs, and you got the veteran who's been there for a long, long time. Like, it's really shaping up to be a classic racing movie championship battle. The young guns versus the veteran who is still kicking ass. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And Frankie Muniz, I think, again, he really showed this 30 team. I don't know if they're capable for wins every week, but what Frankie also showed is that he's no joke. He's not going to go out there and just run laps. Frankie is going to go out there and give it everything he has, lay it down all on the line. And, he should have gotten a top 5, top 10 finish at Daytona. He was robbed of a good finish, in my opinion. And finishing 6th in this race, I would say he's a lower underdog for the championship. I wouldn't count him out 100%. But, maybe we shouldn't sleep on Frankie Muniz just yet. I'd like to see his performances at Talladega and Kansas first before I pass real judgment of where he's going to be in the championship. But very impressive runs by him to start the season as well. And for other full-timers, we kind of figured that John Garrett wouldn't be up there. And again, that's not, due to his talent, just Veer Motorsports just doesn't have the equipment that, of course, the other guys do. And Christian Rose, well, we just kind of figured he would crash out of every race. He didn't do that at Daytona, but he did do it at this one. And then, of course, Brad Smith, just trying to get the team together for this year. We know he'll be up there. By the time Kansas is done, Brad will be back in the top 10 in points easily. It's just a couple of bad finishes to start the season, of course. But, yeah, wow, we've been here for an hour. But I really thought the race was okay. Best race of the weekend, in my opinion, by far. I'm just not a big fan of Phoenix. And I'll say it again on tomorrow's Backmarker Battle show. I don't really care for this track. I don't think it should be the finale for the Cup Series or Xfinity or Truck. The West Series always puts on a great show. Like ARCA puts on a great show. I mean, every race ARCA has had at Phoenix has been a pretty decent race. The West Series finales are always crazy. And I think what this also showed is the West Championship's going to be a lot of fun between Bradley Erickson and Tyler Reff. But the East Championship, for everybody that just gave the East Championship automatically to the 18 car for a third year in a row, might not be that easy. If the 41 is this strong in this race, I think it's safe to say that the 41 also has a legit chance at the East Series Championship. Even though the East Series field's not looking very stacked in terms of a big car count, we have, 7-8 guys running full-time for the championship in the East Division. So while the car counts might not be the biggest, it doesn't mean that we still don't have a very stacked field of full-time drivers going for this championship. probably going to be the most competitive East season since the inception of it in 2020 or 2019. No, 2020. 2020 was the first year. But yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. I would have to say that the 41, in my opinion, if you're the 18, I'm not saying get nervous, but if the 41's bringing this much fire to every single East race as well, I would get a little bit concerned. But I think where the 18 is really going to show its muscle is at tracks like Bristol and Iowa. Those races are expected to have pretty big fields, and will a team like Logan Jackson be able to bring that same fire to those races? But obviously, we'll get into that more on next week's Five Flags preview show, as next week we'll do our preview show for the first East Series event of the season. If you haven't watched this race yet, should be uploaded on YouTube at some point. We have a lot of channels that upload full ARCA races, so if you have a night to kill, I would watch this race. It's kind of a fun watch. Like I said, easily the best race of the weekend. And yeah, that is our Phoenix review, guys. It's going to be a fun championship road ahead. We got our underdogs. We got our big wigs. We got our low-budget guys. And we got our starting parkers. Everything we love about the ARC series, man. And I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Appreciate it again. Hitting 1,000 subscribers. Such a big accomplishment for me. We'll see you all tomorrow. Live at 7 p.m. for Backmarker Battles, our Phoenix show. And yeah, I'm Colby Evans signing off. I'll catch you all real soon. And enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night, guys.